How are new tariffs affecting the RV industry? What's the show season looking like? How is that going to act as a bit of a predictor for the rest of the season? And what are the real deal Evander Holyfield numbers coming off of last year? And how does that roll into this year? All that and more, those are the kind of questions we're going to get into here in this month's RV Industry Update. My name is Josh, the RV Nerd. Thank you once again for tuning in. But before we get to all of that, I'm hoping that together, maybe through efforts like just, if nothing else, sharing this video to help spread awareness, we might be able to find out and, identify and locate the flippin' jerk that has defaced yet another of our historic public lands. The Buckhorn Wash pictograph panel that's estimated to be about 3,000 years old. Somebody decided, there we go, to scrawl Sylvia P onto it, defacing a 3,000-year-old piece of American history with someone's name. Maybe their own, maybe not. But do you have any idea who might have done something like this? Report it to the information that's been shared on screen here, and if you don't, please consider hitting that share button to help spread the message around. I've tried to help spread messages like this before. I'm not saying our videos are the reason why, but we've been able to, over history, identify and capture a couple of the boneheads that have done things like this. And while that would be great, I think the thing we'd all agree that would be even better is if boneheads stopped defacing our public lands. So, moving on from there, which is also reason number 37, I don't want to live on this planet anymore. And as you can see, it is now officially Michigan mud season here as I walk around. That kind of actually is a real thing. Nowhere near as bad as Maine mud season. For those who have been up there, you know that actually is also a very real thing. You walk in your front yard, you sink up to your kneecaps in gunk. You don't care. Why am I even talking about this? Moving on. The 2024 stats are now all officially in, as tracked by a third-party entity known as Statistical Surveys. They're the ones who actually watch all the different registrations and everything in the RV industry to get the real deal information. And that's what I want to share here today, because you've heard me kind of say all year, shipments are up, but you've also heard me say sales are down, sales are down. I've always tried to be real, never let it be said I'm puffering stats here. Basically, what's the short answer? The real hard information is that people have purchased just shy of 7% fewer RVs this year versus last year, which I don't think is quite near the drop that a lot of people were predicting. It is kind of interesting if the RV industry officials every year always seem to kind of predict like a 14% increase. It's been like 14% a number of years in a row, but we saw a 7% decrease in registrations from the year before. I also don't think people realize what that number means, just 7%. 356,000 RVs were registered this in the months of 2024. I don't think people realize how many RVs are actually sold and purchased out there. Now, to give you a reference, there were 333,000 RVs built during that time. And even though you've heard me say shipments are up but sales are down, you realize that more RVs were still purchased last year than were built. And that number doesn't sound right until you realize the excess surplus of RVs that already existed within the nationwide system of all RV dealers coming into last year, which there was such a massive phase of overproduction. And I don't just that's not like, oh, the manufacturers built too many RVs. Well, the dealers bought them. You know, the one can't really happen without the other, but there were more RVs purchased last year than were built. So essentially, there are fewer and fewer RVs available in the system nationwide even now. Now, there's a lot of factors for that. I think one of the biggest reasons is not just market factors, people purchasing less. Of course, that's a major influencing factor, but interest rates have crept up and dealership operating costs have gone up a lot with it. When interest rates were much, much lower, dealers could stock more inventory and have less overtime risk involved in that they can't do now. And that's why a lot of dealerships, you may have noticed, have really started to slim down their inventory. Like I just happen to have a Rockwood coming into frame over here. Now Rockwood's actually not really a good example of this because they are such a well sought after brand. But let's say theoretically a dealership used to stock 8 Rockwood floor plans. They might now be stocking 6 or whatever. You get the idea. And a lot of brands have shrunken down the number of different, or a lot of RV main dealerships. I can't even speak today. If I'm extra stupid right now, I am sorry. Normally, after a long weekend RV show that I just got back from, I take a day off. But I needed to get this video done for you today, so I'm operating, coming basically straight off an airplane without a lot of sleep after working a lot of 14-hour days in a row, and my brain is just mush. So if I sound stupider than normal, that's what's going on. You get the idea. A lot of dealerships have shrunken down the number of different brands that they are actively carrying and really focusing in and basically picking their partners. But in terms of how the numbers by segment kind of stack up, well, here's a look at that all broken down for you. Now, when you look through these numbers, something I want to mention, when you see the thing that says park models, that doesn't mean destination trailers like a Wildwood Lodge or something like that, like a Jayco Bungalow. Those are actual park models. It's a different thing from like what you see on this channel. I don't actually record park models. There are things that dealers call park models. That's not what this is. That's the only, but because it's basically technically a trailer, it gets lumped into these stats, albeit a small number. In short, I think because a lot of people have been pricing pressured out of traditional housing, the park model sector has been seeing a pretty healthy shot in the arm. But again, that doesn't really have anything to do with RVs that you see here on this channel. By segment, you might notice that essentially every sector of the RV industry is down by volume. So never let it be said that I'm trying to puff numbers and try to make things sound better than they actually are. My only goal with these videos is to be as brutally clear as I possibly can given the information that I have in front of me, which admittedly sometimes is rather muddy and murky, like our back 40 over here that I'm walking through currently. One thing I did notice, we're going to talk a couple times in this video about the Canadian market stats right now, and there's a lot of reason for it because the Canadian market stats affect the RV market as a whole, so whether it's the US or the Canadian market, it's definitely all related. But in the month of December alone, there were over 9,800 RVs registered in the United States. During that same time period in Canada, there were 339. It's a massively different number. Now, I suspect the biggest discrepancy there is weather related. In fact, during those months, it's not uncommon for many Canadian RVers to actually come down to the States to go through some of those winter months. But the drastic difference in the amount of sales kind of raised eyebrows for me, anyway. I don't know. What do you think about that? Now, looking at the used RV market, looking at auction wholesale values over time, I don't think there's any major super noteworthy blips to talk about here. Everything seems to be following pretty normal seasonal kind of effects, as it were, where the price of used RVs, kind of like new RVs, but especially the price of used RVs, really does tend to be very subject to the weather outdoors. When the temperature is down, the cost of a used RV tends to go down and vice versa. Now, as I mentioned, it is currently coming into mud season, and we are about 1 month away from the majority of campgrounds and park facilities that are not affected by seasonal weather patterns. The majority of those are just about to open right around the beginning of April to mid-April. That's usually when we see the biggest surge of RV campgrounds coming out of hibernation, as it were. So, here's a prediction I have. If you are looking to purchase a used RV, in my experience, and after about 16 years of doing this right now is about one of the best times to pull a trigger on a used RV, because dealerships a lot of times have been sitting on a used RV through much of the winter seasons, especially your northern dealers that, you know, get snowfall like we do. So there's been sometimes 3 to maybe 6 months where that RV's been sitting there, and they need to get those dollars cycling because you don't make money collecting these things. That's a good way to die as a dealership. This right now is one of the best times to do that, but also just before the campgrounds start opening, the real floodgates on the new RV sales start opening, you avoid when the new RV pricing also starts to creep up. Because I will die on this hill, the values of used RVs is absolutely bolted to and relative against the cost of a new RV. If new RVs run more, used follows. When new RVs dip down, used RVs dip down, because logically, you have to sell a used RV for less than new, or else somebody would just buy new. Along with that, another thing that makes me feel this is the way that across all sectors, RV manufacturers are very quietly starting to creep up a little bit on pricing. Actually, speaking of that, for a while, for the majority of last year, really, through my videos, I mentioned how new RV pricing was beginning to come down. How much it came down kind of varied by segment. Some segments it was little as like 1.5%. Some it was closer to 8%. But even then, 8%. Like it's a freaking gift. 8% after RV pricing jumped up as much as almost double in some RV segments. Like 80% in some is a very real number. It doesn't seem like a gift. It's kind of like when I was younger, and everyone has a reference like this, but when I was younger, gas was like $1.10 a gallon, and then we had a major increase in fuel cost, and then gas went back down from like $2.15 to $1.85 a gallon. Like everyone was supposed to be thankful and doing backflips for it, but it's kind of funny. Things shoot up like a rocket, they come down like a parachute. Well, I've been watching very quietly here, and since the turn of the calendar year, since the 2025 year began, new RV manufacturer pricing has begun to creep up a little bit. Now, here's the thing. That trend, for whatever cause, we're going to talk a little bit about that as we go here, but for whatever cause, it does not affect inventory already in the field, no matter what a dealer tries to tell you. I ran into an online Facebook group the other day, and this is exactly the kind of, almost threw some profanities out there, the kind of BS that I try to fight against with these videos. Somebody was shopping for a fifth wheel, and the dealer told them that manufacturer pricing just went up, so the unit in their inventory, the cost just went up. Now maybe their asking price went up, but the cost, the hard cost on that RV does not change. The way that this works, when a dealer, like any of these RVs behind me, any of these that are actually ours in stock, we've already paid for them. Now, we might have an open revolving line of credit called floor planning with the bank, but basically they're paid for, and whatever that RV cost was snapshotted in time at the time it was purchased, like a Polaroid. It's not something that changes over time. What that means is the vast majority of inventory out there in the field and in stock available for you to look at or could potentially purchase today is protected from future price increases. Dealerships sometimes, some of them, not all, some may try to tell you otherwise. So it might be important to kind of look at, like, if you actually, here, let me go show you what to look for if you're actually physically in person to know if you're going to get the runaround on this or not. Sorry for the squirrel moment there, but I realized it's easier to show you how to protect yourself rather than just tell you. Right on the front driver's corner of RVs are your DOT safety stickers, but on those is also the one of those stickers will tend to have a production date, literally the born date of this camper, its birthday, Mazel Tov. This one behind me was built February 7th of 2025. So if the Keystone Cougar group had changed any pricing after the turn of the year, it would have been applied to this RV. But if this RV is still sitting here in April and Cougar has some other thing that adjusts their base pricing, this RV is not affected by that because it already exists and it's already here and it's already been born. Mazel tov. But that's the kind of stuff that you might run into sometimes out there as a buyer. Those are the sorts of things I want you to be able to avoid, and I want to help protect you from. There's a lot of games out there, and there's also that old phrase that figures lie and liars figure, and sadly, this industry is not immune to that sort of behavior. And I can't change that, but I can at least help you not become prey to it. So then the question is, well then why? Why are the prices of the RVs creeping upward? And there's always several influencing factors. Naturally, just the inflation. Inflation is a constant factor within world economies that does always tend to move dollars up and almost never down. One of the other more recent things is the tariffs that are being implemented on various trade agreements between different countries. There is one tariff that seems to be being blown out of proportion a little bit as it relates to the RV industry, and I don't wonder if there aren't some entities doing that almost intentionally to try to shape the public opinion to accept maybe a greater price increase than should necessarily be there. And that's basically the tariffs on steel and aluminum. Dating back to 2018, there was a 25% tariff on imported steel and a 10% tariff on imported aluminum. This stuff is actually not completely new. Recently here you're hearing there's been a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum. The 25% tariff on steel has been there, so that's not necessarily a major change. The tariff on aluminum has been increased basically to match the tariff on steel. Now, those materials are absolutely things that you find used in almost every RV out there, whether it's a trailer or a fifth wheel, whether it's a stick and tin fifth wheel or a laminated fifth wheel with aluminum framing. The increase in the aluminum tariff is something that will affect a large number, the vast majority of RVs produced out there. How heavily? Thing is, we haven't yet seen a major clarity on exactly how those things are affecting the operating costs of manufacturers and thereby the invoice cost of RVs and thereby the price tag that you pay, because that's the thing. At the end of the day, who really pays for all this stuff is you, the consumer, not the RV manufacturer, not even the dealer. That's eventually it all rolls downhill and you're the one sitting at the bottom as the people buying stuff. That's the reality of it. I don't like anything I said, but that's true. The thing is, I don't know that the aluminum build thing affects people as much as they think, because like you see like behind me we have some of these laminated RVs and people think, well, they have that aluminum framework, they must actually get dinged hardest. But then you see these things starting to come into frame over here. A common stick and tin trailer has all aluminum skin, so there's definitely a ding on it there. Where is that? Okay, but what might be interesting, and for you as a consumer, something to keep an eye out on is a hybrid style of construction I call stick and slick construction. That's actually a user submitted nerdism, but this thing right here, normally this Wildwood would have that wavy aluminum skin, but this one was optioned with fiberglass skin, so it has wood framing and fiberglass skin with a wood substrate. So it does not have a high concentration of aluminum anywhere in its construction. It obviously still rides on a steel chassis, of course, but if the prices on these, because of potential operating costs, tariffs, etc., on the tin skin campers or the aluminum frame campers go up, you may see a situation where dollar for dollar, pound for pound, the stick and slick campers, the wood frames with the fiberglass skin, may start to become a dollar for dollar, pound for pound stronger buy out there. I'm sure they'll probably still cost more than these right here, but in terms of what you're paying versus what you're getting, you may actually start to find a net benefit there. And if you're not familiar with the different advantages and drawbacks of different types of RV construction, would you know it? I know this half-balding idiot. I'm 42 years old on Earth, but I got a 54-year-old hairline, and I've done a video breaking down the advantages and drawbacks of those styles of construction. I'm going to try to remember to leave you a link for this in the video description. If I'm stupid and I forget, leave me a note, and I'll try to get that handled for you. Another thing that's been kind of an almost weekly by weekly development scenario has been how the Advanced Clean Trucks Regulations, or Act, and the California Air Resources Board, CARB, are potentially, I don't want to say threatening, but heavily influencing the potential sale of things like motorhomes in affected states. So now there are a total of 10 states who are basically adopting the California originating emission standards. And if you haven't heard of any of this, the short Cliff Notes version, the too long didn't read version, is that by basically, I think it was 2036, a number of states have effectively decided to have increasing restrictions on emissions ratings with the goal of eventually reaching zero emissions by, I think it was 2036. Now, there's 10 states signed up for this. Different states are effectively offering different starting rollout points, but what's been happening here is that some of these states have been abandoning pursuing some additional regulations, and more recently, several of these states that were originally supposed to begin doing this by 2025 have been pushing back their start dates. And I think of the 5 states that had originally begun really aggressively pursuing this, 3 have officially said we're putting on the brakes and holding off till at least next year for whatever reason. And one more is actually New York, I think, is already expected to probably follow suit with that. They never really give us a big reason as to why, just that they are pushing things back. If I had to, this is just my own opinion. This is not a hard fact. I always want you to know to how I separate the one from the other. I suspect it's because they feel there's not a reasonable infrastructure there to be able to remove that many emissions vehicles from being purchased, sold, used in those areas. Now, the thing is, all this legislation doesn't specifically ban the sale of motorhomes into those areas, but it very much kneecaps and prohibits a lot of that activity from happening. So there's not really definitive answers. There's already been a lot of extensions where by now originally we didn't think many of these states, these 10 affected regions, you'd effectively essentially be able to, well, at least the initial 5 that are rolling out earlier. We already thought you, at this point in time, wouldn't be able to purchase most motorhomes in those areas because the suppliers who make the chassis for those motorhomes were not able to meet the restrictions ratings that are coming out. There have been some things pushed back. There have been some extensions. Currently, right now, it's still pretty much business as usual. But if you're a person who's shopping for a year or 2 down the line, this would definitely be something for you to keep an eye on. The hard part is because there's so many different regulatory agencies and different pieces of legislation all interrelated, working in, against, and with one another. It's about as clear as mud. So I'll continue to do my best to try to give you some quick updates on this as we go, as major developments may occur. I will tell you though, I am but a humble RV nerd, and I don't know that I necessarily speak the legalese of our government agencies that well. So my ability to parse some of that information as it comes from those sources is admittedly somewhat limited. Now, quick moment, moving on to a brief gratuitous self-promotion. I'm just really happy to announce that Bish's RV is expanding. We're going to start picking up some coverage in a couple regions that we haven't had before. The only one that I'm at liberty to announce right now is that we're going to be opening a location, full sales, and the biggest thing is full service, about a half hour south of Birmingham, Alabama. And I'm hoping to be down there when that is official. That may be happening in less than 2 months. We might be up and operational. We're probably building fresh facility there. I don't believe it's an acquisition. I believe we're just breaking ground in that area. Now, we have a couple other things in the works this year. I think some folks are going to be excited to hear. I am not allowed to talk about those yet, but basically stay tuned. Some good things are coming, and this is in addition to how we recently opened up our internal internet-based almost telehealth for campers thing called RV Fix. We've opened that up to the general public and not just Bish's RV customers. And one of the first things you're going to see us do with these new locations, build out our service team and our service department first. And then we're going to see what we have and try to build a sales department around that, because what we don't want to do is flood a bunch of RVs into the area that we can't take care of. Our goal with these new regions is to be there and be able to take care of you for the long haul. So stay tuned on that. More updates to come. A quick extension to something I touched on last month. Basically, the early results of show season so far this year and how it often acts as a predictor for the remainder of the year. Last year, show season came out a lot stronger than a lot of people ever predicted. And again, although last year overall sales were down about 7%, a lot of people were predicting almost double that, about 14% down. Show season this year similarly has been a lot stronger than people suspected, even with some bad weather. Tampa did pretty well. I was recently at the Detroit RV show, and the attendance and the intensity there was really something else. It's one of the strongest I've seen in many years, actually. It was really, really awesome. But there have been very successful events. There were some major ones around like the Cleveland area in Ohio. We have a couple different events around Indianapolis, Indiana. And I also just got back from myself, that's why I'm all super tired and extra stupid right now, from an event that we had in Omaha, Nebraska. It's something I've noticed at almost any of the events that I've been at, is that although attendance has been down a little bit this year, the intensity, interest level of people who are arriving has been very, very high, compared to previous years, disproportionately high. I've been kind of thinking about that, and I have a theory on this, so let me know what you think about it. I think that in the past, people largely had to go to RV shows to see the new RVs, to have an idea of what even is new, because a lot of times dealers have this tendency to bring new floor plans with them to RV shows. But with all of the resources that are available out right now, like this channel is a good example of that. I have this theory that more and more people are able to have an idea of what is out there without needing to go to the RV shows just to look at it. So there's the people who are, going to the RV show just to see the things before they do some more serious looking later this year. You have the kind of folks who are considering but not ready to purchase, and then you have the folks who are there to buy. I think it's kind of that first and second sectors. There's not as many of those people physically venturing out and going to the RV shows because there's more and more information available online for more and more resources and outlets than ever before. That's just a general theory that I have. I would ask you, I'm kind of curious, have you been to any RV shows this year? Where did you go? And what was your impression? What did you see? Good, bad, ugly, or otherwise? Lay it out there. But I mentioned earlier we were going to talk a little bit about some Canadian RV market factors, and the vast majority of people watching this channel are definitely US-based viewers. So you might be wondering, why am I talking about that? Well, when the Canadian RV market is anywhere from about 10 to 12% of the total RV production that comes out of the United States, it's a significant thing. If 10 to 12% of your business dries up, it can sometimes have a major effect on how certain businesses take place. With trade tariffs, basically, looming on the horizon, there's that is another one of those topics that every day, almost every hour, there's some kind of major update on it. And I want to also offer real quick, this is not a political channel. That is not who I am and what I am, but that is a real thing that is happening, that is affecting how people may be enjoying the RV industry or able to purchase an RV. So it's something that we definitely have to take a look at and talk about here. But interesting stats. About 2/3 of the RVs available for purchase in Canada are imported from US-based manufacturers. Now, again, about 10% of all RV industry sales from US-based manufacturers are represented by Canadian buyers. Obviously, you do the numbers, you can see the total number of people buying RVs in the United States significantly larger than Canada, but again, Canadian market, a good chunk of that. But what's happening here? A couple things have happened. With tariffs looming, potentially causing not just material costs to increase, but also just the imported cost of that RV to potentially increase. When there's already, say, roughly a 40% exchange rate, a bunch of Canadian dealers have said that's just too much for us to try to risk on that. A lot of Canadian dealers have canceled millions of dollars of orders from US-based manufacturers. Before that, though, the thing that no one seems to be talking about is a lot of Canadian dealers were buying up any available US-based manufacturer inventory left, right, and center. Some manufacturers They build in batches. So like this, there's a GeoPro behind me. I don't even know if they do this, but this is just an example. Let's say, hypothetically, Rockwell gets an order for one GeoPro. They tend to build like 5 or 6 in a row, so that the guy in the production line isn't bouncing around building different things all the time. They try to build things in runs, essentially. And sometimes not all those are spoken for. So sometimes they're open and available in the yard. And those things got absolutely picked off like crazy recently here, because a lot of Canadian dealers were trying to insulate themselves from some of this and potentially extend their amount of operating time with reducing risk during that point. Smart business. There's nothing that was absolutely a smart decision. But how this plays out long term seems like it really depends on the people that we've appointed to run at the top levels of our associated countries. Now, I would be curious, any Canadian viewers or dealer agents, whatever information you're willing to share in the comment section, I'd be really curious to hear what your view is of this here. Because again, I am just but a simple Midwestern boy over here. I don't have the big picture. Love to hear from you. Another thing that's been facilitated, predicated maybe by government-based decisions, the status of the staffing of the National Park Service seems like every other day I'm seeing some kind of major roller coaster change update. Now, I only get a chance to make these kind of sort of news recap video things about once a month, but over the course of just this last month, there have been like 6 major developments as it relates to staffing for our park services. Where it all kind of began is effectively about roughly 1,000 people who were going to be working for the NPS just had their offers to work rescinded. There's no money, you don't have the job for that. A lot of people raised 9 kinds of cane for that. I don't think unreasonably. That's my opinion. That's not just the hard facts. That's just my personal opinion. I always welcome you to share yours. I just always want to do this respectfully. Since then, some things have kind of changed. Instead of losing 1,000 people, the NPS has advised that their ability to hire people seasonally has gone from 6,300 to 7,700. So a net positive 1,400 people, but though we've lost 1,000 full-time positions and gained 1,400 in the net. Well, I guess 400 in that, but you get the idea. But we've gained 1,400 additional seasonal, part-time, basically, kind of jobs. I'll be kind of curious to see how that plays out, because one of the things that I don't think has been discussed enough, I wish I would have done a better job of it, I've touched on it here and there, is how the people working at our park services are, I think, very overworked and very understaffed. So since like 2010, the number of people we have working in those parks, so the people who not just collect your fees at the gate, but they maintain the trails and they keep things clean, or the people who literally rescue the lost and or injured hikers, we have 20% fewer of them, despite the fact that they have had a 16% increase in visitors over that same period. So we have less staff to help more people, and we have had kind of several labor concerns happen just over the course of this last month. I will say again, I only get a chance to peek through this keyhole. If this is a topic that really interests you, it sounds crazy that I'd recommend you take a look at another YouTube channel, but again, I'm here to try to just give you the benefit. The best way I can benefit you on this is check out what Jason and Abby do on their YouTube channel, RV Miles. Talking about what happens with like national parks, state parks, stuff like that is absolutely one of their specialties, and there's certainly other people that do it. I don't know that there's anyone that does it better than them. So hop over there if you are curious, if that's something that you're thinking about doing, and they are probably one of the best resources to keep you up to date as to what's happening with our national parks. Something else that I think is good news is basically the number of reservation cancellations, especially late cancellations, like just before they were supposed to be there, and the number of no-shows is on the decline. There's still more of it happening than I think anybody would reasonably like, but basically recent report is indicating over 70% of people are actually like making a reservation and staying for all days that they had reserved, which is that number is up from what it used to be. It used to be some people, more and more people were just showing up late or leaving early, and those numbers are down. Now, there's been a total of about a 17% drop in cancellations and no-shows, and I started wondering, what is that? I started looking into it. Booking times overall are decreasing. I had asked even on this channel, hey, if you booked out one of your favorite places, how much in advance would you have to do it to get the site that you wanted? A lot of people said sometimes things like 9 to 12 months. Like the spontaneity of RVing was dead, basically. And there's still healthy lead times, but those numbers have decreased significantly, especially depending on facility and your preferred style of camping. Another thing is I think that there's just an increased awareness on how that sort of cancellation activity hurts like RV park owners. Although there's definitely a consolidation trend out there where there are some like big, national chains of parks. There's still a lot of family-owned mom-and-pop kind of RV parks and facilities out there. Even some very nice resorts that are just independently owned. And, making a booking and then not showing up directly blasts their income. And some people have become more aware of that. Though I think probably one of the biggest suspicions of this, two things. One is that the number of people who are able to remotely work has been on the decline as more and more companies are pushing back to bringing their staff back to full-time brick and mortar. That's not a new trend, but I think that's one of the things affecting these stats over the year. The other one is that I think more and more RV parks and campgrounds have implemented no-show and late cancellation fees. Like there's, say, hypothetically, some parks have said, well, if you cancel within 1 week of your intention, we'll only refund 50% of your booking fee, and if you no-show, you get nothing back. I don't know that I personally disagree with those, but that's just my opinion. I would be kind of curious. The folks who are watching this, the folks who are like my wife and an alpha level planner, people who plan stuff out, almost a year in advance. The people who made reservations like 6 months plus in advance and found that the campground online or the booking was almost full. When you got there, what did the park look like? Was it really packed? Were there a lot of openings when you got there? I'd be kind of curious to see what the current barometer of this, because it's been a while since I asked. Quick little bit of bummer news. Do not expect federal key interest rates to be dropping anytime soon. Over the course of last year, the federal key interest rate dropped about a full %. Now, those do not directly translate into lower interest rates on RV loans if you go to buy an RV, but eventually the one does tend to influence the other. Currently, everything appears to be holding pat. Essentially, the Fed's stance on this is that they're in an observation mode. They need to see what their decisions to drop rates last year are going to do and how new tariffs may potentially affect inflation. They feel right now things are pretty stable, that the employment is in a good spot, is pretty stable right there at near full employment, as they like to call it. So whatever interest rates you've been seeing over the last month or two is probably what you're going to be seeing for the next foreseeable 3 to 4, if not more. And I know I tend to ramble long, so I'm going to try to clip up the pace here best I can. I saw this interesting article. This company has this new technology coming out to help you avoid a can opener bridge, basically, to help you avoid potential low clearance threats using basically an app and some other things that would give you roughly like say a 100-yard notice that, hey, you better hit the brakes because up ahead here you're about to rip off your air conditioner, or worse on this RV, because there are definitely some very scary can opener bridge scenarios out there potentially. In case you're curious, 100 yards, that's the size of a football field, or if we use the more universal unit of measurement, that's about 480 bananas. A lot of people don't realize how big the state of Texas is, so I put a banana on the state of Texas here for scale, just to help give you. Pretty crazy when you really look at it, right? Anyway, I am kind of curious. Have you run into a low clearance situation, and what was the result? My father ran into one once where a police officer directing traffic told him to take his giant fifth wheel under a low bridge, and at Lego popped the air conditioners off the thing and crushed in the roof of his RV. Naturally, the law enforcement agency said they were not responsible for any of this. But I'd be kind of curious, what have you run into in those kind of quick, scary scenarios? Couple other quick orders of business. Quick congratulations to Venture RV. If you didn't know, they were a division of KZ RV. KZ themselves being founded back in 1972, if I'm not mistaken. Venture is one of their more recent branches, but have completed construction of their 35,000th RV and more since then. I've had a lot of requests to record Venture RVs. We just don't happen to have them among our lineup. I'd be kind of curious, is that something you think we should be looking at? People who own Venture RVs, I'd really love to hear from you. What is your takeaway? Like, would you purchase your RV again now that you've had one? I'd love to hear from you in the comment section. What has your ownership experience been, and those who have needed service? What is your impression, like a 1 to 10 score, with 10 being better, of how the factory stepped up to help you fulfill your needs? I don't know. I have no personal experience with them. I'd be kind of curious to know what you think as owners. Also, a big congratulations to the Keystone Cougar Group. Their fifth wheels are once again the top-selling fifth wheel out there in the market by volume, and that has been verified by the Statistical Surveys Company. Also, where I got all my third-party stats for the new RV market earlier. For most of my lifetime, Montana, Cougar, and Reflection have been the top 3 selling fifth wheels, and Cougars once again bumped themselves back to the top. I think it says a lot. Anybody can get to the top once, but to stay there or get back as often as they have is pretty impressive. It's borderline dynasty level success. But one of the reasons I want to talk about this, I got my ears to the ground, and they've made some, they've added, not changed, they've added to their staff down there, and they've now got somebody running their travel trailer division who also himself is somebody who has led brands to be the #1 thing out there. So their Cougar fifth wheels are continuing to plow forward. Keep an eye on their travel trailers. They might be that dark horse breakout over the next year or two. I think you're going to see some really awesome things there. Here's another crazy stat on Cougar. Over the course of their time in the business, over 275,000 Cougars have been purchased. That's a huge number. Almost one entire year of the RV industry in current modern times represented exclusively by Cougar RVs. That's kind of wild. Anyway, there's some really awesome safety tech very soon becoming standard. So around June is when we're going to see the 2026 models come out, and by September, something that will be mandated by RV manufacturers is a new ground fault monitoring system that will prevent a phenomenon often referred to in the industry as a hot skin camper. What that basically means is that there's some kind of grounding issue, some sort of electrical issue, where instead of just the wiring within the RV becoming electrified, the actual metallic skin or the aluminum framework, the metal of the RV's structure, like the steel chassis, can become electrified. And this is something that has not only hurt people, it has cost some people lives. If you Google hot skin RVs out there, you'll find some stories of this. It's a scary thing that is very hard for people to see. There have been several attempts to get the industry to do something about it. And initially the thought was, well, the park hookups, where the power's coming into the RV, that's the most logical place to do this. But to put ground fault interrupt detectors essentially in place, the way that the RVs themselves basically have, for lack of a prettier way to say it, some electrical leakage on some appliances, it would have caused the park power to trip unnecessarily when it wasn't actually a grounding issue. And so it just never happened. And I started hearing about this years ago. Well, what they basically integrated into the RVs will be something that helps detect bad grounding on the RV, so that it doesn't matter what's hooked up to the park, it will be all internal with the RV, which I think is probably a good idea. I support anything that is safety related that could help save lives. Kind of like I'm a big proponent of RV ABS. I think it's absolutely stupid that it's been mandated on semi-tractor trailers since like 97 or something like that, and it's still not even required on towable RVs, which require typically no special licensing or training to be able to haul around. But that's something that I feel. I am curious. I've asked a lot of questions today. I want to ask one more, and maybe more later. I don't know, but one right now. Have you ever run into a hot skin scenario on a camper, or do you know someone that has, and what was the result of that? And if you watch my videos, you know, especially in these updates, I always just try to be fair, and sometimes that's just acknowledging where other people have done some very positive things. I have 2 tips of the cap today to a couple other RV dealers, actually. The first one to Blue Compass RV. They recently did a thing with the Make-A-Wish Foundation, offered up a J-Flight SLX to a family with with a child who is going to be able to get out there and have some really special fun memories. One of the reasons I really like that's actually an organization that we do a lot of work with ourselves. My home store here, I would say, has at least a half dozen fulfillments with the Make-A-Wish Foundation every year. I don't talk about them a lot on camera because it feels kind of crappy to sort of humble brag about myself, but I don't feel bad doing it about somebody else. That sounds super weird when I say it out loud, but it also somehow still feels correct. I don't know. But regardless, tip of the cap to the folks over at Blue Compass. My final tip of the cap and final order of business today is to acknowledge and pat on the back Litzen RV. They are a group whose family started their own charitable giving organization. They encourage their employees to donate. They actually match employee donations up to $20,000 per year. This year in total, they raised about $44,000 that they offer to a lot of like local schools, a lot of local resources. I meant to give you some more specific examples there, but half of my little cheat sheet, I was holding it in my lips and a gust of wind blew up and it shredded and it went out into traffic. And I want to congratulate these folks, but I'm also not willing to put my own life on the line to do it. But at the end of the day, good on you guys for taking care of your community. Whatever organizations those were. You could Google it. And with that stellar ending to this otherwise mediocre video, I just once again want to tell you folks, thank you for tuning in and spending your time with me. If there's something you found beneficial or useful here, please consider sharing this into your favorite like RV social media group. You never know who else might find some similar help and benefit and interest in this. And once again, if you appreciate how we're just totally plain cards on the table about stuff like, yeah, the industry's down 7% from what it was last year. This year might be down again. I don't know. We're going to wait to see how the cards fall. But if you like how we just shoot you straight and don't throw you curveballs, hit that subscribe button. We'll see you next time. So take care, stay safe, have fun, and happy camping, everyone.